Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. But then again, fuck YouTube. Go over to Rumble or DLive.
We have a very special not Mother's Day show for you today.
Yes, today is definitely not Mother's Day. In no way is it Mother's Day-ish.
At all, anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world that matters. Alongside me is my co-host, Fox Revies. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. I would like to say we have a great show for everybody today, but I don't want to lie. So thank you for those who make the show possible, including, but not limited to, Kaylet, Ori May, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, The White Lion, Timberwolf, White Wolf,
oh, no.
and
we still have
Adipus.
I still have the library background on the individual shots.
We have, you'll notice throughout the show, done a lot of AI generation of the pictures for the topics, just for the fun of it. And we had a lot more fun than probably was normal, just trying to find pictures for today. But anyways, thank you for everyone who makes the show possible.
And we definitely did not start the show late because we got sucked into a rabbit hole of...
Yeah, I definitely didn't click create like 1,000 times for each image, just trying to find the perfect one.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have 1,000 pictures of Anthony Fauci in Chinese military garb with Winnie the Pooh. Welcome to the Dire. I don't have that.
I apologize to everybody watching the stream. Just go crazy while I'm trying to edit these scenes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get that stabilized here in a second.
Yeah. So thank you for everyone who makes the show possible. You also can just help us out. If you don't have to donate to us financially to help us, you can just like, share, and subscribe. That's how we'll grow. Please go to Rumble. YouTube already has given us so many strikes. Just overall and then generally, they've been giving them to us pretty regularly. We just got our streaming ability back on YouTube just this last week. So
we also have a special live shot today of us in the studio.
Oh yes, we do.
This was the one and only good, I would say, creations from the AI engine that we were using. This picture is notable in that both the fox and the wolf have their own independent nose, which is very, very unique.
Yes. The AI likes to meld all noses in the picture together.
Yes. But this, what we're trying, this actually, we were very surprised. This is actually like a pretty good picture.
Yeah.
So we'll save this one and probably use it later. But yeah, that's Dire and I in the podcast studio, surrounded by hundreds of microphones.
One will not do.
and sitting literally a centimeter apart.
The secret to good audio sound, because that's what we're known for, right?
Yes. There was I'll do it find later, the one where there's the wolf just eating the microphone. That was the AI somehow knew that Dire he is not good with his microphone position. There was one where the wolf was eating the microphone, and then the other one where the wolf just had his nose on the back of the microphone and the microphone was pointed the wrong way. That was also pretty accurate.
Trying to eat it. We have some funny comments to start off our show. We got this great one. Kamala Harris, she gave one of her famous, really eloquent speeches, and if I understand correctly, she was giving this to the Howard University basketball team.
Howard University is one of those historically black universities that Kamala claims to have gone to, and so I don't really understand basketball. Or any sports with balls in them. But from my understanding is Howard did surprisingly well early in the season, and so they got put into a bracket where it was a little above their league. And so it was a very exciting that, for them because they got into this high bracket. However, they were expected to lose because it was a little bit outside their league. And so when they did lose, Kamala Harris was in attendance, and she came in to make them feel better. And similar to how the entire country has been losing under Joe Biden's tutelage, and Kamala Harris has also tried to give the American people pep talks. It went a similar way to that.
You guys are so good. You guys are so good. You played hard. You played to the very last second. You made all us Bisons so proud. You hustled out there. You are.
But reminder: this is the Howard University college students, not the Howard University third graders.
Right.
Smart. You are disciplined. You put everything you had into the game. And that's what it's about, right? Until the last minute. You guys did that. You didn't stop until the last second. You did not stop.
Mom.
And that is so inspiring. So you keep playing with chin up and shoulders back. Because you showed the world who Bison are, right? I mean, literally what you have done is in historic proportion. I was at Howard back in the day where we were just happy that there was a game, much less get.
Wow, that was really I don't know, Ubonic, how she threw her I don't know. Just the way she made her voice sound.
To this place, right? And I see Bison literally all over the world. And we've been talking about you, this team, you all, this team, this year, this team.
So am I to understand that as the taxpayers have been paying for Kamala to travel all around the world?
She's been meeting with Bison's players.
Yeah, she's been meeting with Howard University graduates talking about college basketball.
You make us so proud. So I know you may not be feeling great right now, okay? But know who you are. You are excellence.
You are losers.
You are hard work. You are powerful. And you are winners. All right?
Literally
so
not.
Please know that. Please know that. And I'll see you later. And if you guys ever want to come and do a White House tour, where's Coach? Where's Coach? There you are. Come, so we plan, if you guys want at some point, right? When it's when you feel like playing hooky at Friday afternoon, whatever, just come and we'll do a White House tour, okay? All right, I'm so proud of you guys. So proud of you. All right, I'll see you later. Coach,
man, are you, do you feel pepped up, Dyer?
No, the funny thing is, you told me that she gave a speech like this to a team that just lost at basketball. Yeah. And I did a mocking interpretation of what I thought it would be like. And the funny thing is, it sounded just like that, except for I couldn't do the tone.
Yeah, it was kind of spooky because I was like, "Hey, did you see this?" And you're like, "Nope." And then you start going, "Oh, I bet you said this, and this," and it was, yeah. I was like, "Oh, I guess you did see it."
It sounds so condescending, like she's speaking to a 5-year-old, and it's also disingenuous. Like, no, she's not going around and talking with people on the few diplomatic trips she actually does around the world. She's not going and talking to them about Howard University or their basketball team.
Yeah, it's such an unnecessary lie. So I understand in politics, there's a lot of I don't like it or agree with it, but it's a very common thing. It's what politicians will have these platitudes saying they did stuff or thought about things they know that they did not do. Is it really necessary to have a false platitude to I don't know, your college basketball team? That's, I don't know. That seems a little unnecessary.
Yeah.
These are things that are probably easily fact-checked.
Exactly. And no one around the world is talking about Howard, just in general. It's probably a local community and just that.
Yeah. All right.
We also have something else from Jesse Smollett, right?
Yeah. So, Fox Nation, which I am a subscriber to, and I'm glad that I was a subscriber to it for this, because I wasn't sure if this was real or not. It is absolutely 100% real. What we're about to see is absolutely, like, really happened, is true. It is a real documentary on Fox Nation, and these are, what we're about to see, are really the real Ozundaya brothers, the two, I guess, weight training guys that Jussie Smollett paid to beat him up. And, well, part of the Fox Nation documentary was an interview with them. And the video speaks for itself.
1 second before you play it. When I watched this, and when I watched it, I felt that they are being so comedic. There's no way this could be real. It had to be parody. Bulls. Just watch it.
It is, in fact, real.
They took our beautiful bench. This is where we waited for Jussie to come before we attacked them. So we got here with 10 minutes to spare, and we had to plan our escape route to survey the land. His building is actually right here, right above the stairs that we're going to attack him at. We made sure we got there at 2 a.m. sharp.
On the dot.
On the dot. We had no phones because he did not want us to bring any phones. He said, so we don't lose them. I don't know if that's really the reason, but you can deduce your own reason. So 2 a.m., he was nowhere to be found. He was not there. So we were like, damn, what do? We didn't have no way of contacting him. He had no way of contacting us. So we waited here for about, what, 4 minutes?
It was about 4
Roughly
minutes,
4 minutes.
but it felt like forever.
Because it was cold as balls. So I saw him out the corner of my eye, and I was like, okay, that's him. Let's go. We gotta go get this Empire fat. Yeah, that's him. That's him. Is that him?
That's that neck.
It's that neck.
Get that neck.
Oh, he's moving fast. Come on, let's
Two
get
old,
him.
Get that
old
neck.
country
Let's
mob
get him.
boys there.
As we crossed the street, we said hey to get his attention.
Hey, Nick.
Hey! He turned around, looked at us, and that's when we started yelling the famous slurs he wanted us to yell. Hey!
Aren't you that Empire?
Hey, Empire fat Nick! It's MAGA country!
Yeah.
And then he said, what did you say to me? And then that's when I threw the first punch at him. I held the blow, because I didn't want to hurt him, of course, so I made it look real, but I held it. Then we started tussling, moving around, and then I threw him to the ground. He wanted it to look like he fought back. That was very important for him, because he said, hey, don't just beat my ass, make it look like I'm fighting back and whatnot. So we did that, and then I threw him to the ground, and after I threw him to the ground, he had no bruise. I wanted it to look more real. So then I threw him to the ground. After I threw him to the ground, I used my knuckle and gave him a noogie. So I went like this. Why did I do that? To give him a scar, to give him a mark, to make it look real, like he really did get his ass beat. After I did that, I fake kicked him. I don't know what he was doing. I wasn't paying attention.
That's where I came around with the bleach, the infamous bleach in the hot sauce bottle, poured it on his shirt. Then I finally put the rope around his face. I did not put it around his neck. I just placed it on his face, and that's when we took off.
Yeah, so I didn't know that I needed a reenactment of what happened via the guys that did it. But after seeing it, I did definitely need that.
I'm sorry, that was hilarious. I want to point out though that I'm glad that they're further making a mockery of Smollett and his hoax. They also were willing to hoax people, so they're not good guys. They were willing to spread this false message that MAGA supporters are going around beating up black gay guys from some TV show no one watches.
Yep. But they also testified against Smollett. So
thank you for doing something right.
Yes.
You're still kind of assholes though.
They are funny though. That was I feel like they've been kind of held back the last couple of years because of this scandal. I feel like they probably have a possible future in being comedians. So I would love to see them have an interview with the Hodge twins though. and just get lost in which one's which.
Oh God.
We also we had this week not Mother's Day, but another holiday, St. Patrick's Day, which is one of Joe's favorite holidays. He once again this year recounted that he's Irish, but not that Irish because he doesn't have any family members in prison, which is not necessarily due to him being not that Irish, but more that he's, part of a corrupt crime family that has people in positions of power to keep them out of jail. But here was Joe talking about, I don't know, some memories of previous St. Patrick's Days. Let's watch.
I'm getting a little bit worried. We were in here watching you, and the Taoiseach, you're on camera. The Taoiseach, isn't that Senator Coons? What the hell you been doing, Coons? Yeah, I don't know, man. At any rate, he's the senator from Delaware.
That's right. Senator from Delaware. Did you catch any of that, Dyer?
No,
No.
I did not.
Well, that's your president, commander-in-chief, right there.
Yeah.
I don't know who's better spoken, him or Kamala. Kamala is like an AI, just not a good one, where she speaks very clearly words that don't make sense. Like, they don't make sense in the order that she strung them together, but like she said them very well. And then Biden just can't speak, even words at all.
Right. She's saying real words. Just the order and the context makes no sense.
Alrighty. Well, another thing that doesn't make sense is the economy, which this is the Biden economy as generated by an AI. I do like Biden's triple pocket square on the left here. I just noticed that. That's pretty aggressive. Is the triple pocket square? I like that. I might have to try that next time I'm wearing a suit. So we have some updates on the economy, and mostly the economy is just still fucked. So
Yep, update, still fucked.
yes, not any better. All right, well, we have from CNN here, who has a very large top banner. There we go. I want to make sure we pulled from a reliable source so that YouTube didn't think that we were spreading fake news once again. So CNN Business. Definitely not fake news. So we had some updates this week. Some different things happened. Obviously, last weekend we had a small banking collapse. It was only the second largest banking collapse in American history, and it was followed later in the week by the third largest banking collapse in U.S. history. So it's not like they were the biggest or anything, Dyer. It's not that big of a deal.
It's a small banking collapse.
Yeah, it's like, if you're not first, you're last, right? Exactly. Okay, so here is the timeline as stated by CNN, along with a few extra timestamps that we added in there. So we had on Friday, so we know this from last week, from the show last week. So on Friday, March 10th, the U.S. government's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, took control of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. It was the biggest banking collapse in biggest banking collapse in America since Washington Mutual in 2008. The wheels started to come off around 48 hours earlier when the bank took a multi-billion-dollar loss, cashing out U.S. government bonds in order to raise money to pay its depositors. It tried, unsuccessfully, to sell shares to shore up its finances, and that triggered a panic that led to its downfall. On Sunday, on March 12th, the FDIC shut down Signature Bank, another bank, after a run on its deposits by customers who were spooked by the implosion of Silicon Valley Bank. There's also some conspiracy theories about Signature Bank, which are very interesting, and I encourage you to look into them. They're just too complicated to go into on our show. Both banks had unusually high ratios of uninsured deposits to fund their business. On Monday morning, before the markets open, on Monday, March 13th, Biden gave a speech ahead of the market open at 9 a.m. Jen Psaki, his former press secretary, reminded us in this clip just how important Biden was taking the situation, given that he woke up at 9 a.m. to talk about it.
Now, it's important to note President Biden does nothing at 9 a.m. He is a night owl. So the fact that he is doing this at 9 a.m. anyway speaks to how vital the White House recognizes it is for him to have his voice out there, conveying that to the American public. All right.
So it's really Jen Psaki. You heard it from Jen. She worked for Biden for 1.5 years. She said it's very important to Biden. It's so important that he got up early at 9 a.m. because normally Biden's a night owl.
No, he's not. They always knock off at like 5 o'clock. They'd stop doing public appearances at like 5 or 6 o'clock because that was getting late for him.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't go. He wakes up late because he's old and tired, and he goes to bed early because he's old and tired.
Here, you can do our fact check segment on that.
Okay, sorry. So, 2 fact checks here. While Biden spoke at 9, he was scheduled to speak at 8. So it was important, just not important enough for him to show up on time.
Yeah.
Also, is Biden really a night owl? CNN previously reported that Biden is more of an early to bed type who retreats to his residence at 7 p.m. every night. That's why he can't do public appearances after 5 because he has to go back and be at home at 7.
Unless they got him doped up on goofballs and speed strips.
Yeah. The whole his entire campaign was it was usual for him to do 1 or 2 appearances
and
maximum.
calling a lid at like noon.
Calling a lid at noon, yeah. He did very few events, where in comparison Trump would do 5 or 7 events in a day.
Yeah. So we have again actual like mainstream media coverage that Joe Biden is an early to bed type, and then also we have it straight from the horse's mouth, Jen Psaki, that he's also a not an early riser. So
He's just
when
not
is he working?
type.
Yeah, that's the kind. He's a late to get out of bed and early to get back in bed. And I think that kind of covers what we assumed was going on, right? I mean, this all fits in very nicely with what we thought was happening.
Now, I want to point out, though, if you aren't doing any actual planning or thought or managing, and all you're doing is reading a teleprompter, then how much time in the day do you really need to do that, right? If you're just a mouthpiece.
Probably not much. Okay, so we had our illustrious leader decided to grace us with his presence by getting out of bed on Monday to try to calm the markets.
Meanwhile, everyone else that he is ruling over is waking up far earlier for their jobs.
Spoiler alert, it did not work. So on Wednesday, on March 15th, after watching shares in Credit Suisse collapse by 30%, Swiss authorities announced a backstop. You guys are going to start hearing the term backstop a lot. That's a new term. It's newspeak for bailout because they don't want to say bailout anymore. And so the term backstop, well, probably maybe next show we'll do like one of those like word usage over time graphs. I bet you the word usage for backstop is like 0% until like this week. Yeah. And all of a sudden it just shoots through the roof.
I remember 20 years ago when bailouts of the banks was something the Democrats were opposed to.
Well, yeah, there still are. Now they're for backstops. Don't you want your back stopped?
Yeah. No.
Biden wants to stop your back.
I'll fall for that trap again, all right?
Yeah. You won't get me 3 times. So let's see here. So Credit Suisse, they start collapsing. Authorities in Europe announced a backstop for the country's second largest bank. It claimed the immediate market panic, or calmed the immediate market panic. But the global player is not out of the woods yet. Investors and customers are worried that it doesn't have a credible plan to reverse a long-term decline in its business. And as bad as European banks, or as bad as U.S. banks are, like European banks are like a whole other animal, and that animal is just dead. And so while Credit Suisse is like falling into the abyss, there's no other bank that in Europe that is also not falling into the abyss. Like there's nowhere else to jump to. It's like all of it's just collapsing. And America, the banks, some of them are collapsing, and it's hurting the other ones. But like there is some stability, even if it doesn't feel like it, when you're comparing us to Europe. I don't know if that's saying much, but it's true. All right. So on Thursday, March 16th, First Republic Bank was teetering on the brink as customers withdrew their deposits. At a meeting in Washington, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Jamie Dimon, of the CEO of America's biggest bank, that'd be Chase Bank, drew up plans for a private sector rescue. The result was an agreement with a group of American lenders to deposit tens of billions of dollars of cash into First Republic to staunch the bleeding. Well, that's nice.
Yes.
All right. Dyer, how much is this rescue plan, not bailout thing? New words, new speak. How much is that going to cost us?
It's going to cost us nearly $200 billion so far in direct central bank support, in guaranteeing all deposits in Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. The U.S. Federal Reserve is on the hook for $140 billion. Then there's additional $54 billion to the Swiss National Bank offering Credit Suisse in the form of an emergency loan. Probably not going to get paid back. The Fed has also agreed record amounts of loans to other banks this week. Banks borrowed nearly $153 billion from the Fed in recent days, smashing the previous record of $112 billion set during the crisis of 2008. So our solution is far, far more expensive than what we did for the previous collapse.
And I guess remind me, does the Federal Reserve have any money to give out?
No, they're having to print all that money.
Oh, okay. So that's all.
What does
just
that do
new
for
printed
inflation?
Money. Yeah. So currently, with the Fed raising interest rates the way they are, they have been scooping money back out of the economy after they spent over a decade adding money to the economy. With the current interest rates, they've been scooping something like $90 to $100 billion out of the cash, out of the money supply every month. And so when they've now just re-added $150 billion back into the supply, we basically just rolled back all the progress of fighting inflation back by a month and a half. And really, do we think that this is the end, or probably just the beginning? Yeah,
just the beginning.
Yeah, they will take any reason to turn the money printers back on. We will find out this week if they're going to continue raising interest rates, which is interesting because now we have the Fed fighting the Fed. Just like Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man meme, where the Fed is fighting inflation by raising the interest rates, and the Fed is also fighting the raise in interest rates by printing more money.
Our government is drunk on printing money. They're just going to keep trying to print money and keep spending to try to spend themselves out of the hole they've built. But every time they print more money, they're just digging that hole deeper and deeper, destroying our economy.
Yes. All right, so banks also drew on nearly $12 billion of loans from the Federal Reserve's new emergency lending program, which was established at the start of the week with the aim of preventing more banks from collapsing. The $318 billion the Fed has loaned out in total to the financial system is about half of what was extended during the global financial crisis. So we're not calling it the Great Recession or, like the 2008 collapse or, calling it a crash yet. However, the Fed is spending and policy looks almost identical to how it did during the crash in 2008. We in a week are up at the half the level so far of what was needed to respond to the entirety of the 2008 collapse.
Can we call this a recession yet?
Well, can we call it a banking collapse? I mean, can we call it anything? I mean, geez. I think that's what they figured out in 2008 was, it's a branding issue. It's really, if you just don't call it that, but you still, do the policy, that might fix it or stem the tide for a little while. But The real problem is the name. We found that out with a lot of things on the left. Is like, the real problem is how do things identify? It's not a problem that the economy is falling through the floor. It's a problem that you've identified it as falling through the floor.
It's a whole new world. We might even call it a brave new world where you can just define yourself into being correct. Fauci can fund gain of function research just as long as he doesn't call it that.
Yes, of course. Let's see here. So, JP Morgan's Michael Ferrari said, but it is still a big number, in a note to investors on Thursdays. The glass half empty view is that banks need a lot of money. The glass half full take is that the system is working as intended. I don't know that anybody could possibly look at this and say that the system is working as intended. I mean, they had to rewrite the FDIC charter to get it to work. I mean, was that baked into the system when you completely rewrite the protocols that the system is operating under?
Hey, Fox, we are right on the cusp of the cost of paying the payments on our loans being higher than our military spending every year.
Well, the solution to that is obviously to raise military spending, is that not? I mean, that's why we have to start a war. Otherwise, yeah, you're right. That'd be bad if all of a sudden the interest payments got to be more than military spending. We better do something to ensure that we have to spend more on military.
The point of that comparison is to say that we spend a metric F ton on our military, and I'm not saying it should be lowered, because I do think military spending is important because being prepared for the threats that we are facing is important. It probably have a lot of. I think our money in the military can be better managed, right, by a lot. But the point is, we spend a fuck ton on the military. I know for a fact, and it's baked into the pie. There's things I can't spend money more responsibly. They won't let me. There's only a single vendor, and I'm not going to do the story again. Don't worry. So they could make it so we manage our money better in the military. But the point is, the analogy is, we spend a fuck ton on our military, more than I think any other country, and yet our debt payments are going to eclipse that amount of money very soon.
It's almost like the national debt is a threat to national security.
I just watched a Remy video mocking the idea of $20 trillion.
A Romney video, yeah.
No, Remy.
Who's Remy?
He does parody songs about politics.
Oh.
And he did one about the $20 trillion being too much of a debt, right? Now we're well over 30.
back in the day, I remember that.
That's like 5 years ago.
Okay, so the banking industry, CNN continues here. The banking industry has coughed up. Get out of here, stupid pop-ups. The banking industry has also coughed up billions of dollars. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Citigroup, who are 3 of the 4 basically remaining banks, are among a group of 11 lenders providing the $30 billion cash infusion aimed at shoring up confidence in First Republic Bank. HSBC has also reportedly committed more than $2 billion to Silicon Valley Bank's UK business, which it bought on Sunday for a single euro. Oops.
Also, according to Triumvirate in chat, NBC is reporting that the entire Credit Suisse bank has been purchased for $3.2 billion.
Wonderful. That's great. So super exciting. This, as with the previous collapse, it will probably be that you go to bed one night and you wake up the next morning and it's all gone. I feel like when things happen, they're going to happen very quickly. I know last week during the show, there was a lot of developments. I'm sure, within an hour of the show being over today, a lot of this information will be out of date. But yeah, it's not going well. And I think America's only reprieve here is that Europe is probably going to collapse a little bit harder and a little bit earlier and probably a little bit faster than America. So I think we may end up being able to ride this out just via European money having to come back to American banks because the European banks have already failed, whereas the U.S. banks are only about to fail.
You guys really need to watch the Creature from Jekyll Island stream that Fox did last week, because it seems more like a not fiction, but
Yeah, every year more and more of it is not fiction.
but like a prediction of reality. So check it out. We got a clip here.
Yes. So, we had some hearings this week because obviously there was some things that happened last week. So we, of course, naturally had hearings this week about it. And we had Janet Yellen, who is formerly the Fed chairwoman and is now the head of the Treasury. And mind you, this week they the Treasury teamed up with the Federal Reserve. So Janet teamed up with her old company and her new company, and then they rewrote the FDIC, which was very interesting. So members of Congress decided to ask her about that this week, and one of the main things to keep in mind is the change to the FDIC that was made is that it appeared that instead of having a $250,000 insurance limit, the limit was now unlimited, and the FDIC was going to insure any amount of money in any bank. And so Janet was asked about that, and her answer was actually a little more scary and disconcerting than just having an infinite FDIC. And here that is.
Love to talk about all that. Don't have time. I need to be able to drill in on a couple things. Let me start with some of the banking issues we're dealing with on it. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVB just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So what is your plan?
We made that determination.
Right. Yeah. So is there unlimited FDIC insurance for everybody? No. It's only for the people that Janet Yellen has decreed it for, which is a pretty wild reading of the FDIC charter. Again, the FDIC was an entity created by the U.S. government to try to stabilize the financial system during the Great Depression. It goes back that far. And the Congress set a limit, like it's a law, and Congress set the limits by law. It was originally 100,000. There was an update to it, a few years back, where Congress passed another law to amend it to 250,000. And then Janet basically just testified, well, if I feel like it, if me and the executive branch and the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not a government entity, but a cabal of private banks, it's just the definition of it. If we just decide, we can override the FDIC as we see fit without any other laws being passed, without anything. That is an insane power grab.
Janet Yellen and no one in the Federal Reserve has the power to determine how much will be insured. It is determined by law, and the president doesn't have that authority either. So when Biden says that it will be covered indefinitely, he can't do that. That money is got to be allocated by the Congress, and they haven't done that yet.
Well, and the FDIC is going to use up all of the money that was paid into it. When you put money into a banking account and you're supposed to be getting interest off of it, some of that, now obviously nobody in recent memory has really gotten interest off of a savings account, but I digress. In theory, you're supposed to be getting interest generated off of that because the bank's taking your money and they're re-lending it out and they're doing something with it instead of letting it just sit there and do nothing. If you wanted to let it sit there and do nothing, you can put it in your mattress. That's a choice you have. But some of that profit that the bank makes from relending out your money, some of that goes to you and your interest rate. Some of it goes into the insurance plan, the FDIC insurance plan. The FDIC insurance plan is for you guys. It's for the little guy. It's not for, even if you own a company, it's not for your company. If you own a company, your company should be hiring somebody to manage risk, especially financial risk, and figure out ways of hedging your money or insuring it with a third party, not the FDIC. There's nothing stopping big companies, by the way. Well, don't big companies deserve to have their accounts insured too? You know, they have a lot more money than $250,000. They got a big payroll and all that sort of stuff. There is third-party insurance plans that you can buy as a large corporation, and you can insure your bank accounts. You can insure all kinds of stuff. You can do different financial maneuvers to hedge your bets. Now, I don't necessarily know how to do that myself personally, and maybe you don't know how to do that either, but a big company or even a regular-sized company, you should be hiring somebody to do that. If you're worried about your cash flow, you should be hiring somebody to mitigate that risk. That is not the problem of the American people to deal with. The FDIC was supposed to protect the common person because regular people don't have the time or the knowledge to hedge in the way that you would need to defend your savings account from the possibility of a bank collapse. This is not necessarily a welfare program. It is an insurance program. It was created by the government to try to pull some of that burden and remove some of that risk for you so that you as an individual and a family don't have to worry about that risk because the FDIC has got you covered. But the FDIC has got you covered using the money that's paid in by fees from all the banks. And so it's like if you've got a healthcare policy that covers you up to $1 million. You know, you get into a car accident or something terrible happens, and you can draw down on that up to $1 million, and great, you're good to go. And maybe your neighbor's got that same plan, and maybe something happens to him, and it's like, oh well, you know, he needs $10 million. You know, he needs like a new heart or something. He needs $10 million. And, you know, we feel really bad. And, you know, Janet Yellen said it was okay. So we just decided we're going to pay him out $10 million. And, you know, there's plenty of money in the insurance plan. Don't worry about it. We're just going to pay him out $10 million. Well, then you get sick. And you're like, hey, insurance company, I got sick. I need some money now. And they're like, oh, well, we don't have it anymore. Well, why not? Well, because we gave it to Bob. Like, well, what do you mean you gave it to Bob? Well, yeah, he needed a lot more money than what we had originally insured him for. And even though we insured you for that same amount, now all the money's gone because we gave it all to Bob. It's like, oh. And that's what's going to happen with the FDIC is they gave all of the FDIC insurance money to a couple of banks in the last week. They basically drained the entire fund. And now, as Janet Yellen just said, if your bank collapses, well, screw you. There's no money left. And so I guess they will just have to continue to print it out. And there'll be some other emergency measure when that happens. But what we had set up with the FDIC was a way of handling crises that was a pre-planned way of dealing with it. What Janet and the Federal Reserve have done is they broke that pre-planned way of dealing with a crisis so that there is no choice but to give them special authority, emergency powers when the next crisis happens. That's what they did. We had a pre-planned crisis resolution protocol that was, everybody knew what it was ahead of time. It was accepted. There was ways of dealing with it, and they broke all of that. So the next time there's a crisis, you have no choice but to give them more power.
Yep.
All right. So,
next clip.
What's that?
Next clip.
Yes. So, now, who are these depositors at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank? We talked a little bit about that on Monday night and last week, and I made the supposition that they probably are woke companies, and that has bared out over the week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was a pretty accurate guess I had there. A guess I didn't have is I probably should have had was foreign investors, and Janet Yellen was asked about that this week.
That SVB had a large number of Chinese investors that are there, including some that were companies directly connected to the Chinese Communist Party. Will those individuals, companies, entities, and investors that are Chinese investors be made whole based on assessments in my banks in Oklahoma? So what I'm asking is, will my banks in Oklahoma pay a special assessment to be able to make Chinese investors whole from Silicon Valley Bank?
Uninsured investors will be made whole in that bank, and I suppose that could include foreign depositors, but I don't believe there's any legal basis to discriminate among uninsured.
I get it, but I'm just saying.
All right, we're going to let him finish there, but I just want to real quick key into what she said. So she said that she's talking about uninsured depositors. So you're talking about depositors with more than $250,000. Some of them are Chinese, and because she said that we're now exercising these superpowers of draining the entire FDIC insurance pool, and we're going to pay out the investors 100%, or sorry, the depositors 100% of what they had covered, whether it was $250,000 or $250 million, they're going to be completely covered. And some of those might be Chinese people, and they might be Chinese businesses, but there's no legal basis for discriminating as to which ones get the infinite insurance policy. Excuse me, ma'am, but we are already breaking the law that was established. So, and you just said earlier in this clip that it was to your own discretion. So once we're breaking the law, we can't suddenly go back and be like, well, we're going to break the law, but there's no
break the law while I'm breaking the law.
Yeah, I mean, discrimination, that's a much higher law. That's a much higher law than, just regular breaking of the law. So, if we break the law for some people, we got to break the law for everybody. It's equality of broken law. Equality under the law breaking, right? So they're actually, because we're off the rails now, because we're off the rails of what was legislated, we're off the rails of what the FDIC charter is, and Janet has just decided that her and the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, can just unilaterally make decisions. Well, we can't make that decision. That would be discriminatory. No. Once we're off the rails, every decision is now her responsibility.
It doesn't even matter if you agree with her, which just hypothetically, if you agree with her, she was not elected and she does not have the power to decide these things with our U.S. tax dollars.
Yeah. No, I mean, she doesn't. I mean, it's legislated that she doesn't have that power, but she's seizing it anyways, but she doesn't want to take responsibility for the consequences. I mean, if you circumvented an order and it caused a bunch of other problems, do you get to say, well, those other problems are not really like my fault. All I did was circumvent an order. Like, because these other things happened, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm responsible for them. Or is it, as soon as you break an order, are you then responsible for every consequence?
Yeah, if my breaking of orders sends off a chain reaction of events that leads to terrible things, I will be blamed for all of them.
Yes. So Janet Yellen has broken the law by circumventing the FDIC charter. She's now responsible for the dollars going to Chinese billionaires who had companies with multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar accounts at Silicon Valley Bank. She's responsible for that money going there because she broke the law to even allow it to happen. And then she's allowing it to happen, saying, well, it's not really my fault. It's just, it's equity, it's equality. It's all that sort of stuff. No, you are responsible. Once you break the law, you're then responsible for every single micro consequence that comes from you breaking the law. If she hadn't broken the law, there may well be a equity or equality mandate that says, well, we can't discriminate against Chinese investors up to $250,000. That might be an interesting discussion to have, but I could at least understand it if it was everybody gets $250,000, up to your limit. And that includes the Chinese depositors too. Even though they're out millions of dollars, they got up to their $250,000 insurance limit. That I could understand. I wouldn't like it, but I could understand that. But now that we're totally blowing the brakes off the thing, you're responsible for every single choice. And Janet Yellen's responsible for sending, again, it's not just, guys, it's not just that the FDIC insurance pool that was for you, for us, for the regular person, it's not just that they drained it completely. It's that they drained it and a bunch of it found its way over to China.
It's funny how the current administration's policies always seem to benefit China and harm America.
Well, Dyer, is there another example that you can think of recently where we had a pool of reserves designed for the American people that suddenly became drained and a bunch of it ended up in China? Can you think of another example of that?
Reserve of oil that we had that was supposed to be released to, drop prices for Americans and provide oil to Americans ended up going to China, being sold to China.
Yeah, so all roads lead to China. All of the saving, they are looting. There's loot and plunder. Mark Levin, he that's kind of his like terms for everything is the looters and the plunderers. He's got a book called Plunder and Deceit, one of his many books. But this is what they do. They are not just plundering all of like the economic value of the American people. They're now plundering all of our savings accounts, all of what we set up to like preserve the way of life for the regular person, not a welfare, but a reasonable insurance policy, backup plan, emergency reserve. They're getting rid of all of it. They're selling all of it to the highest bidder, and usually that bidder is China. That is wild. You have the FDIC being drained, some of it finding its way to China. You have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve being drained, some of it finding its way to China, and all of it for these emergency measures because they screwed up the economy. And the only solution is, of course, you have to give them more power. And when the next crisis, when the next natural disaster hits, and we need our oil reserve and we don't have it, you can be sure whatever the solution is, it will require them taking emergency powers, some kind of emergency power that they'll just keep forever. And the next time we have a banking collapse that affects regular people, I bet you'll probably, I don't think we're going to get to the point where you won't have your money backed up. It won't be insured, but to insure it, to get you your money back because the pool's gone, the money's gone. To get it back for you, they will have to exercise some crazy power again. Maybe that's a digital currency or introducing a digital currency. Maybe it's food stamps. Maybe it's who knows what it is. But it will require, they're breaking every backup plan so that when we need those backup plans, we have no choice but to turn to them and give them power.
You know what made Trump different was, I remember us talking about on the show, he was being asked by a journalist, quote unquote, about why he wasn't taking, action and forcing Americans to do this or forcing states to do that or, taking executive power here or there. And he was like, I constitutionally cannot do that. I don't have the power to do that. And he didn't do it. He had a major crisis and didn't expand the power of the presidency. What he did within the realm of which he had authority for the most part. But then with Biden, he and the Democrats, they are every single little crisis they can find, big or small, they use it as an excuse to gain more power. And as did the establishment Republicans in the past as well.
Yep. All right. And just in case we are wondering, again, Janet said that we are only going to use these extraordinarily new and illegal powers with the FDIC. We're only going to use these at Janet Yellen's discretion. And so maybe you're wondering, well, okay, I understand, the internal logic that it's at her discretion, but why would her discretion say that we need to use it on Silicon Valley Bank? What's special about Silicon Valley Bank? Well, here's what's special about Silicon Valley Bank is this Democrat operative representative. She is the president of Voto Latino, which is a DNC organization trying to get probably illegal aliens to vote. And here's what she had to say about Silicon Valley Bank on Sunday.
However, I want to start very quickly with banking crisis. Maria Teresa, you were just saying you were surprised you haven't seen Powell yelling out more forcefully already. Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair.
If you look at which bank this is the Silicon Valley Bank. This is the startup bank. This is also oftentimes the Democratic ATM bank of all those.
Oh, it's the Democrat ATM bank. Oh, okay.
Oh.
That explains why it was chosen as the need for a bailout. Yeah, so Silicon Valley Bank, as we've found out over the week, they're extraordinarily woke. They venture capital invested in a lot of extraordinarily woke and green energy technologies and stuff like that. And Silicon Valley Bank on their own donated $70 million to BLM. There's a lot of evidence that the hundreds of companies that they invested in, a lot of these companies, these startup companies that, they're for green energy or, equality or equity or some goofy thing, and they don't actually have any product. They're these startup companies where they're getting a lot of investor money, but they're not actually producing or making anything. And a lot of them are then somehow, even though they have no cash flow, but they are donating money to Democrat politicians. And so when she's talking about this being a Democrat ATM, she's not wrong. It would probably be more accurate to say, though, that SVB is a part of the Democrat laundry. And I don't know. I guess part of the interesting thing that's been happening the last few months, you think back to FTX, which was clearly a Democrat laundry operation.
Yeah.
It looks like the New World Order establishment is like crumbling to pieces. Like their infrastructure for money laundering is just disintegrating every day. The problem is, it seems like their infrastructure is kind of the whole thing. It seems to be the scaffolding that was keeping up the Western economy, which is a little concerning. And it seems that as this globalist...
I think I disagree. I think that they are tearing apart the economy because they are just as evil as you think they are, but they're also equally incompetent. So in trying to do their evil, corrupt things where they are selling out our country for their personal gain, they are doing such a incompetent job of it that they are inadvertently destroying their own apparatus along with that keeps them in power and keeps them funded along with the rest of our economy. They really do think that they're smart enough to run this economy and run this government. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? They convince themselves they're smart enough to do it, but they really are completely inept. And as they've unintentionally destroyed the economy in their attempts to be corrupt, they have torn down and revealed their own financial apparatus, their own laundry operations have been destroyed along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been one of the key takeaways from the last week is that and we kind of knew that already, right? But the extreme incompetence of the supposed economic class, the supposed professional class, just the extreme level of incompetence that they've had, and that's if there's any takeaway from this week, it's that. And unfortunately, that's probably not a fixable issue, at least not in the short term. It will require kind of a probably a reset of some kind to the economy. I think everybody knew that was coming, right? There's going to be some kind of reset. Maybe even a grand reset. And I think it's good. It's an opportunity. Obviously, some people want to reset it to have more power. I think that the reset's coming either way, and I think that it would behoove us to have the reset be in our favor. Have a reset where we get all of these, I guess the money-changing class out of the economy, where they aren't really doing anything but taking your money and shuttling it to Democrat causes. Let's do a reset and get them out of the economy. They want to do a reset and basically get you out of the economy, but either way, we're resetting it.
If you're ever wondering whether or not the Democrats are like playing fifth-dimensional chess with the economy or if they really just are completely inept, just remind yourself that AOC has a bachelor's in economics.
Yes. Yes, this would be solved by printing $1 trillion coin, right? Or several of them.
several of them.
Do you remember when we
33
did
of
the
them.
remember when we did the analysis of how big the coin would have to be if it was truly the value of $1 trillion, and it was like the size of like 30 F-35s parked together? All right. Well, something.
Our next story.
Yeah,
right?
something that's as good as an F-34 or an F-35 is the drone that's now in the ocean, Baltic Sea.
It was collected by the Russians. Anyway, so a U.S. Air Force MQ-9 spy drone was.
Is that the one on the left there?
It's not in any of these pictures, actually. Oh, by the way, that is not AI generated, and you should not have that picture.
What, this one on the left here?
Pretty sure the one on the left is going to get us in a lot of trouble.
Oh, is that? Oh.
You should not have that.
Oh.
So the MQ-9 spy drone was intercepted by 2 Russian Su-27 fighter jets this week. One of the Russian fighters unintentionally downed the drone with a close flyby, causing where they hit the rotors on the drone and caused it to crash into the waters of the Crimean Sea. So we have a video here for us to watch.
Oops.
Now, there was 2 passes of the drone. The first one was a low pass, a close pass, where you can see they're dumping fuel. The dumping the fuel is in no way affected the drone. It was not intended to down the drone, despite some reporting that they were trying to drop the fuel to knock out the drone. And some reported that was what caused the drone to malfunction. But actually what happened was right here, where the aircraft literally hits the drone. And as you see afterwards, 2 adjacent rotor props on the... Oh, did not show? There it is. 2 adjacent props on the propeller are heavily damaged, meaning that it would not be able to, the prop would not be balanced. It would not be able to get proper thrust, and they could not control the vector of thrust. And they also, if it damaged those propellers so badly, it very likely damaged internal components and hydraulics. So that's what caused the downing of the drone, not the fuel. There was a lot of mixed reportings, but it was not shot down. It was the collision that took out the drone. Some people are saying that the collision was intentional. I would say no. It would be beyond stupid for you to try to fly a fighter into a drone intentionally. The drone is smaller than the fighter, but it's not small and likely cause serious damage to the fighter as well. Yes, it kept flying, but intentionally colliding with the drone had an equal opportunity of destroying the fighter as well. He was very much likely trying to do what the first fighter did and do a close pass to harass the drone. It is actually normal practice as of late for Russian fighter craft to intercept American aircraft, both manned and unmanned, just to harass them. There has been multiple reports of Russian aircraft doing near flybys, dangerous flybys of American and NATO aircraft. You can just do a Google and get a long list of Russian aircraft does dangerous flyby of NATO or U.S. aircraft.
It's also the tactic the aliens use, right?
What?
the UFOs. They tend to do flybys as well.
Of course. So what happened here was an unintentional collision because if you look at the second pass, he came in too low. When he tried to correct it, he did an uncoordinated turn where he turned the belly of the aircraft towards the drone, actually giving him a bigger area service.
Kind of like a prank gone wrong, right? You know, a prank on a global scale with bitter enemies that both have nukes.
If they wanted to take out the drone, they would have used a missile. They wouldn't have collided a more expensive aircraft that has a person on board with an unmanned aircraft that's cheaper.
Well,
right?
I mean, it had a Russian on board. Let's calm down.
Okay. Well, I mean, Fair enough. So, though it wasn't intentional, that's kind of immaterial to the fact that this was another act within a war we're having with them, right? This is a not a more of an escalation because they've been doing this for a long time, but this is just part of the ongoing conflict we have with them. The worst part is that when the drone was knocked out, it for whatever reason, it did not glide to maybe some of its control surfaces were damaged. I don't know, but it did not glide to friendly waters or friendly land. It landed in the Crimean Sea and was picked up by a Russian naval vessel, which is, the future of warfare in general is semi-autonomous and autonomous drones that are either carrying or are themselves ammunition, right? So that is the future of warfare, and it is not good, even though the MQ-9 is by far not our most advanced drone. Giving our adversaries, Russia and China, our drones is a bad thing for them. Giving them something to learn from to help catch up to us in the weapons race as far as drone warfare. China already got a drone from us because they got one that Iran stole from us, and now Russia has at least one of our drones.
Time to launch some balloons, right?
I don't think it would, I don't know why we did not destroy the drone on our own, because those things have really good flight surfaces, a lot of lift, and very little weight for an aircraft, so they can glide really far. And I think since we probably knew we weren't going to pick up the drone because we didn't have assets in the area to do so, and then we knew the Russians did, it would have been make more sense to just blow up our own drone, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of back and forth of, from the American patriotic perspective, we absolutely have the right to fly our stuff anywhere, even if it isn't a conflict zone, because, well, we're America and we're the best. That's America First policy. And even if we're at war with another country, I don't think they have the right to knock down our stuff. That's pretty rude, because, again, we're better. And yeah, that's bias. It's called patriotism. Learn it. I'll put the flag background while I'm talking like that. However, we are this area that this drone was flying in is, it's close to Russian airspace. It's probably in what Russia now considers to be their airspace while they are having this what we'll call a border dispute with.
It's actively being used to call in strikes on Russian soldiers because it's
yeah. We recently late last year we shared some intelligence with Ukraine that allowed Ukraine to blow up I think Russia's biggest or a very large battleship that they had. Which I'm sure Russia found to be very annoying. As their
flagship, if I remember correctly.
Yes, as people who lose their flagships do, they tend to find that annoying. And so the idea that America is completely innocent here. This drone wasn't, it was just hanging out. It was, doing its exercises. Maybe it was a training run or something like that. That's probably bullcrap. This drone was almost definitely surveilling something Russian military related, almost absolutely for sure 100% sending that information back to Ukraine, which again is probably fine, but we're doing this in a way where it's begging for some kind of thing like this to happen, right? We can do surveillance of Russian territory with satellites. This drone looks to be relatively low to the ground. I mean, you can see the ocean underneath of it at one point. I mean, it's up there, but it's not super high up there. We were intentionally, we could fly this, and we could fly a different kind of drone at an altitude where the jets can't reach or where the jets can't notice it to react fast enough. There was an intentional choice made to fly a drone in such a way that it was easily detectable by Russia to annoy them. And it's not just about annoying them. It's about intending to try to create some kind of escalation, try to bait Russia into attacking a NATO position. Again, that doesn't mean that Russia, even because they're being baited, that doesn't mean that they have the right to do it. But at every step along the way, NATO and the U.S. government are attempting to escalate the situation. At every step, they are trying to escalate this to World War III, and it's completely unnecessary. It is not, even if we have the right to do it, it doesn't mean it's necessary. We don't need to be baiting Russia into World War III or into attacking NATO countries. It's ridiculous. And what's going to end up happening is when World War III starts, it's going to start because of something like this happening, where it was a totally avoidable thing, and it was done with the express intention of baiting Russia into war. And then you're never going to, we'll get into World War III, they'll lock down information, you won't be able to, allowed to reference it, and in 20 years, it'll just be like, well, we had to go to war with Russia because, they blew up that drone. And you'll know in your heart that, maybe you'll have even forgot it by that time, that, well, Biden kind of baited them when he flew it over there, and maybe we could have avoided this. Maybe we didn't need to have 10 million people die and have 7 cities get nuked. Maybe we didn't need that, and you won't even remember that because all that information will have been scrubbed. And this is just, it's gonna be one of those little things. It's gonna be like Franz Ferdinand getting shot. Just a relatively small thing caused a world war with tens of millions of people dying, untold destruction of infrastructure and civilization, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary. We didn't have under Trump. We didn't have him constantly poking at the bear. We would ignore them, and I don't just mean Russia the bear, but we had China and Iran and North Korea. And other places where we would largely ignore them or just kind of continue at the status quo. And then we would hit them hard and fast when we meant it. But there wasn't this kind of almost feline aspect of just poking at people and hoping to get some kind of reaction. And it's I don't know, it's not a good look, and it's going to end in probably not good things for the world and world peace and that sort of stuff.
So for some context, we have drones that can fly at altitudes that this fighter could not intercept them.
Yes.
Because the fighter cannot go as high as the larger intelligence drones can. Also,
is the jet that can go higher, is it the one on the left here? Or the
there's also stealth drones that the Russians would not be able to detect at all, and it would be able to fly over the territory undetected at an altitude that they could not intercept. So we could have taken that route, but instead we used one of the lowest tech drones at an altitude where it could be intercepted that isn't stealth, so it would be detected. And also, for context, those drones, we are providing nearly all of the intelligence and signals intelligence for Ukraine. We are directing their artillery, we are directing their troop movements, we are directing their aircraft strikes. We are giving them all of the intelligence to strike Russian troops and targets. So they know that this drone is an existential threat to their forces.
Do you know what the reason would be to try to bait Russia into attacking us first so that we have an excuse to go to war? Do you? I mean, that I have a response to this, but do you know? Do you understand what that reasoning would be?
I think if you want to break down the governments and structure, the current world order, if you wanted to break it down the most as quickly as possible, and you wanted to rebuild it in your own image.
No, I don't just mean war in general. Yeah, obviously, they want to collapse the world structure, but why not just declare war on Russia right now and go to war with them? Why are we trying to bait it so that they're hitting first?
So it's so that they have a what's the word? They want to have the narrative of they were not the aggressors.
So it's all about public perception.
Yes.
The American people would not accept a war right now where we're just unilaterally declaring war on Russia for really no reason and just going to war with them. If, however,
if their populace does not support them in the war, that country is lost.
So that's what I mean by this is an unnecessary choice being made to bait Russia into starting World War III, when it probably wouldn't happen if we don't bait them in. Obviously, the American government and the Western governments of Europe would love to get into World War III. I really don't see any other read on what they're doing other than they would want to get into World War III. But they know that their populations wouldn't support them. So they have to create what would be essentially a real propaganda event. It's an event that really happened, but it only happened to serve the propaganda. And that would be baiting Russia into shooting down a drone or a jet or attacking a NATO country, or, Ukraine firing a missile at Poland and saying that it was Russia that did it. They have to create a real but propaganda event. And so that's what I mean by this is absolutely ridiculous. If this doesn't happen, we probably don't get World War III. But they're intentionally trying to set up a situation merely for propaganda, merely to convince you viewers out there that this is a good idea and get your kind of emotional juices flowing that, oh my gosh, like we got to attack Russia now. I can't believe they shut down our drone. When really the only reason why they had the opportunity to shoot down the drone in the first place is because Joe Biden and the NATO countries were exclusively their purpose was to create this situation so that you would say, yes, we can go to war with Russia now. I accept this because Russia's an aggressor because they attacked our drone. When really that situation was engineered to happen in the first place. And that is, it's very ridiculous and upsetting, and it's probably going to work.
And right now, Russia is doing that with their own people, where they have their whole narrative about how the war in Ukraine was actually started by the Ukrainians, and that their government.
But it was
not, right. So, but their narrative goes beyond that, right? So that they're trying to play the game too, where they're going to go to war too with the Western powers. They always say we're already at war, but they want to have as good of a narrative as possible to claim that they were not the aggressors.
Yes. All right. We're gonna cap off this segment with pointing out that the experimental jet on the left there that the AI generated, Dyer, I want you to notice near the thruster a nose cone that is pointed in the wrong direction. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. All right. Here is what the AI generated for our next story, which is, I love it. I love all of this.
It's so great. Perfect.
It's beautiful. All right. So Fauci he's been a naughty boy with our taxpayer dollars, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Fauci has used U.S. taxpayer money to fund the Chinese military. I'm not fucking with you. This is a true story. It could, truth is stranger
so
than
in
fiction
addition
sometimes.
So what you're saying is that in addition to the strategic petroleum reserves, in addition to the FDIC reserves, where also the national health investment reserves are also going to China.
So here's what happened. So first, let's catch everyone up if they've just been living under a rock, right? So it's long been confirmed that Anthony Fauci, the father of COVID-19, gave U.S. taxpayer money through grants to the Wuhan Institute of Virology for them to conduct gain-of-function research through a third-party EcoHealth Alliance. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
Fauci also famously argued in papers he wrote that in the past that the risk of pandemics was acceptable based on his perceived benefits of gain-of-function research. He had been opposed to gain-of-function being outlawed, and he had argued that it didn't matter if there was a global pandemic that came from gain-of-function research, because gain-of-function research was so good it would make up for the losses of life. Also point out that gain-of-function did not at all help find a cure for COVID-19. It just caused it. So this is all a matter of record. During the COVID-19 hearings going on this last week in Congress, it was revealed that Fauci gave $20 million in grants to a virologist to write reports that that COVID-19 was naturally occurring when they knew, in fact, that it was not true. The people he was giving money to through grants, they had previously said that COVID did not look like it naturally occurred, and they discussed evidence about how there was no evidence that it was naturally occurring. That most likely came from a lab in Wuhan. The virus factory next to where the virus appeared was likely the cause. But days after receiving grants from the NIH, which was authorized by Fauci, they changed their tunes, and they were signatories on a study saying that it was naturally occurring. So we have evidence of not only Fauci funding the research and development of COVID, but also we have evidence of him paying people off to lie about the source of COVID. And, well, it got somehow Fauci went even worse than that. During the congressional hearings, records were provided showing that Fauci also gave taxpayer grants to U.S. universities, who then spent that grant money, sending it to spent it on Chinese military bio research.
Well, that's unfortunate. One such recipient of the cash from Fauci is Lishan Su, a graduate from Shandong University. That sounds made up. In China, who now works as a professor at the University of Maryland, also sounds made up, School of Medicine in Baltimore. Baltimore doesn't have any schools. What is this? Su has been in the United States for more than 30 years, according to his publication records, having maintained active research collaboration with scientists in China, including several direct links to the Communist Chinese Party, or CCP, People's Liberation Army, which, again, let's not forget what the People's Liberation Army is. It is not the military of the country of China. It is the military of the Chinese Communist Party, which is why it was very interesting when General Milley said that he felt that the general for the People's Liberation Army was his counterpart, because if the People's Liberation Army general was Milley's counterpart, then that would mean that Milley sees himself not as the general of the United States, but as the general of the Democrat Party's military. Yeah. So again, People's Liberation Army is the military for the Communist Party, not for the people of China. Over the course of all these years, Su received more than $5 million in research grant money from Fauci, who, got it from you, the taxpayer, because Fauci doesn't have $5 million, which he used in part to produce the 2001 U.S. patent US 111363999B2. Not an AI. This patent belongs not to the University of Maryland, where Su works, but rather to the Institute of Biophysics, Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing. That patent is for a type 1 interferon receptor antibody. So basically, he's sucking up his salary money as a professor at a U.S. university. He's sucking up U.S. tax dollars in the form of grant money that Fauci gave to him. And then all of a sudden, he's moonlighting his research projects and filing patents on behalf of China in the U.S. So that normally what would happen is if there was a medical breakthrough discovery at a U.S. university, the university would get the patent, and they're not a pharmacy company, so they would license out that patent to a U.S. pharmaceutical company who would then be able to use that new knowledge, and the university would get some money back and save in theory, save the U.S. taxpayer some money that would normally be going to that university, because the university is making its own money now with its own patent. But we've now basically, circumvented that entire profit model, and now it's just going to China, which is great. Yep. So happy for them all. Let's see here. So Lishan Su is an inventor for that patent, and his address is shown as the Institute of Biophysics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, not the University of Maryland, where he's supposedly been working for like 30 years. This was discovered by Dr. Lawrence Sellin, PhD, in a bombshell piece about Fauci's treasonous funding of secretive R&D programs in communist China. The other issue that's been happening over the last decade or so is we've had this large boom in biomedical technology, and the NHS and the DHS have been interested in bioweapons research, not necessarily for creating new bioweapons, but for preventing against them and preventing against just natural diseases like supposedly the COVID was. And what's been happening is they've been giving lots and lots of grant money to, supposedly public or private scientists. And what's been happening is these scientists, they've been using this money, coming up with research and ideas and techniques about genetic engineering for creating these super viruses. And then they've been publishing them, which I guess that's great for the DHS because they then get that published information and they can then use it to, maybe defend against, an attack or something like that. But they're also being publicly published. So these genetic engineering techniques, like a lot of the techniques that were used to create COVID, those were all supposed to be research designed for the DHS to help prevent a pandemic. And then these scientists, because they wanted fame and fortune, published these research papers with their name on it, and it just became publicly available. It's very, the analogy would be during the Manhattan Project, where you had a similar situation where it was the next big potential threat and opportunity in nuclear technology, and the DHS desperately wanted us to be able to figure that out first, and so they hired a bunch of scientists to help them figure it out. And it would be like if during the Manhattan Project, as the scientists were figuring out the atom bomb, they started publishing on the internet, the World Wide Web back then, all of their techniques and ways of making critical mass and a nuclear bomb, and publishing it all on the internet for the Nazis to see. That's basically what's been happening now with bioweapons research. Is the DHS has set up a similar system where they're able to hire and fund scientist groups to do this research for them. But instead of keeping a lid on that stuff and keeping that contained and classified and keeping it where it needs to be at so that we can prevent bad actors from learning how to do these things, they're just publishing it online. And it's beyond belief, and it doesn't seem like an accident. It seems like a malicious act by a certain Winnie the Pooh loving communist leader here in Mr. G. Fauci. What do you think, Dyer?
So I think that it's partly it's self-interest, but it's also a lot of the scientists that are working on stuff across the country in our universities are Chinese scientists who are using our facilities, our universities, our taxpayer money, and our manpower to do all the studies on these things, and then they take the benefits of that back to China. So just extracting wealth and knowledge from our country. And there's multiple examples of this. So there's another one. Continuing, Selling said, what is even more shocking is that Li Shansu was simultaneously being funded by China's Ministry of Health grant from the Chinese Ministry of Health, which is part of the Chinese Communist Party's 13th five-year plan, National Major Infectious Disease Special Project. So he's being paid both by the Chinese Communist Party for research and by our tax dollars at a university, and then taking those patents back to China. Su was also part of a apparent scientific propaganda effort aimed at supporting and promoting the CCP's narrative that COVID came from was naturally occurring through tainted bat soup and not the result of a laboratory tampering, which they knew to be true, that it actually was from the laboratory. On February 2020, an article entitled "No Credible Evidence Supporting Claims of the Laboratory Engineering of SARS-CoV-2" was produced out of this and solicited by Sean Liu, the editor of the Chinese Journal. Liu also just happens to be another recipient of funds from Fauci. So Fauci was funding this person who was making articles arguing for the naturally occurring narrative for COVID. As was Sean Lulu, the senior author of this bogus study.
Selin claims that there is a de facto scientific fifth column in China, trained scientists from China working in the United States who, although being permanent residents or even becoming U.S. citizens, appear to have remained loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. Another communist Chinese scientist by the name of Zhijing Li has a similar story. The inventor is a scientist at the People's Liberation Army who works for the Academy of Military Sciences, also in Beijing. Fauci awarded him 3 separate grants for the development of another patent. These were just 2 examples found based on a relatively small amount of scrutiny. There is likely many more examples if anyone wants to look for them.
Yes.
Why
So
does Winnie the Pooh have 3 feet in the left picture?
He actually has 3 feet in several of the pictures for some reason that I produced. Maybe it's his third leg. What can you say?
Well, you were asking if Pooh was a boy the other day, so I guess.
Yep. So, I think that there's. This has obviously just been a week or 2 of congressional hearings where they've been asking for more records on Fauci and what he's been funding, and they've already found out a lot. And I think we're well beyond arguing treason. He broke the law in many different ways, and he needs to be in jail.
Yes, I agree. Or given a vaccine.
Oh yeah, vaccine straight to the eyeball. Anyways, next story.
All right. Our next story is we have nothing for that story. Trump might be arrested next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
doubt it's going to happen. Well, if it does, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, if he does get arrested, we'll talk about it. It'd be because of a DA in New York arresting him for something that is not a crime. It could also just be something Trump is saying on social media to freak people out and get them talking about him. Well, I guess we'll find out tomorrow on Tuesday.
Tomorrow's Tuesday?
Next week on Tuesday.
Yes. Alrighty. Our next story is an even bigger scandal. It's about DeSantis and his pudding predilections.
I actually really like the pictures on the left and the center. Pretty good pictures. But I want to point out that on the far left picture, instead of having his branch of service, he has a second flag.
His branch of service is the entire United States, Dyer.
He doesn't serve the Army or the Air Force or the Navy. No, I serve America.
Yeah, that's his branch.
Also, it's the nondescript rank on his lapel. It is not actually a rank, but it's like vaguely seems like it could be a rank.
It's potential commander-in-chief. That's what his rank is. Alrighty, so we have a lot of DeSantis stories this week. So one of them is also about Trump, who seems to have filed, maybe not Trump necessarily himself, but a super PAC that is, highly related to Trump, has filed a ethics complaint about DeSantis, which in theory could result in DeSantis being removed from the governorship and barred from running for president. So probably not going to happen, but it's not a nothing burger. We have from the AP, Trump ally files ethical complaint against Governor DeSantis, who is pictured here, eating puddings in various settings. All right, so allies of former President Donald Trump have filed a complaint with Florida Commission on Ethics accusing Governor Ron DeSantis, a potential leading 2024 candidate, primary rival for Trump, of violating campaign finance and ethics rules with a, quote, shadow run for the White House. The 15-page complaint filed on Wednesday by MAGA Inc., definitely not Trump related, a Trump-supporting super PAC, and shared with the complaint was shared with the Associated Press, asked the commission to investigate Florida's Republican leader for allegedly leveraging his elected office and breaching his associated duties in a coordinated effort to develop his national profile, enrich himself and his political allies, and influence the national electorate.
Wait. Are they accusing him of being a political figure?
They're accusing him of doing a good job in such a job that is good enough to attract national attention and praise. So, basically, because he's doing too good, other states, the other 49 states, have noticed and like him for it.
Yeah, to overly distill what a politician's job is to do what that will make the people happy and then let them know that you've done it.
Yes, and by doing good things for Florida and letting people of Florida know it, because we live in the era that we do, everybody can see what he's doing for Florida. That is now, I guess, him attempting to enrich his political or develop his national profile by, doing good things.
So developing your national profile, which, by the way, is like one of the primary things a politician is trying to do, is not a crime. And everything he's done is within the scope of what he's supposed to be doing in his job for his state. This is beyond petty. This is stupid.
Yes.
It's not going to go anywhere except for making the people who are making the complaint look stupid and petty.
When you got those emails when Trump was, getting impeached again or raided at Mar-a-Lago or, I don't know, just tripped on a nail. When you got those emails saying, they're coming after Trump and you donated money to whoever it was, probably the super PAC, well, you were donating money to create a smear campaign against DeSantis. Oopsies. Oopsie-daisies.
I see from Trump that they're not the only Trump's allies, not Trump himself, but Trump's allies are not the only ones who've filed a similar complaint that Gavin Newsom may have as well. It doesn't matter who filed it; they're all stupid for doing it. And
apparently, there was a similar mechanism used against Trump, which I think this article goes through. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Trump was complaining about election interference, and now he has associates attempting to election interfere. And again, then the whole point of the super PAC is to try to create a firewall between the actual candidate and the things that are happening. And so I get that, but I'm not, I'm wise to what's going on here. I'm not that innocent that I don't think Trump has some influence on what's going on here. So the complaint says that DeSantis is already a, quote, de facto candidate for president. Well, that's very common to say.
Whether he is or not doesn't matter in this case. It doesn't change the legality of it.
That is if he's a de jure candidate for president.
But he's not announced, and he's not running campaign ads or events trying to telling people to vote for him.
But he's doing a good job for the state of Florida, Dyer. I mean,
what's happening is he's being an amazingly good governor, and people are saying, wow, you're great at governing Florida, you should govern the country. And people, that's not his fault.
I can't remember what the exact situation was, but I remember during Trump's presidency there was an article that basically accused him of doing good things for the country in order to get people to like him.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's what usually happens is if you do things that are good for the country tends to like you.
Democrats are just not used to the concept of doing what's good for America.
Yeah,
so people,
without some kind of ulterior motive.
Yeah, just
so yeah. So the complaint accuses DeSantis of being a de facto candidate for president, citing the governor's meetings with donors. Again, he's a governor has donors too. I mean, it's not weird. Outreach to allies and potential staff, and counting of his influential Republicans in early voting states, among other efforts. The complaint asks the 9-member commission, 5 of whose members were appointed by DeSantis, to punish the governor by having him suspended from the office, publicly censured, and possibly fined. My goodness.
Okay, so if this is Trump, or even just, Republicans, and they're spending their time and effort in a legal case against the best Republican we have in office, who's doing great things for his state, then they are just shooting the conservative movement in the foot. It's helping no one. You know what? DeSantis is already in a litany of legal cases where he's defending his lawful policies at protecting kids from being trans, to having their genitals cut off. He is already in a bunch of legal cases that he's having to defend against the Democrats, and you are absorbing some of his attention and his money, his limited resources. You are taking that away, and I see that as an attack on all the other things he's doing that are good. You're taking away resources from those things. It is despicable. Yeah, I know you want your guy to win. How about you help your guy win? In doing so, help your movement, the conservative movement. If you win at the cost of your movement, you're fucked. What's the point of winning in the first place if you destroy the movement on the way in? It's kind of my argument against fucking Crowder as well. You can compete against, if you want to compete against DeSantis, compete on your merits. Don't try to say, don't try to win by removing him. Don't try to win by default. Try to win because you're the best thing for the country.
Absolutely.
Anyways, is it my section?
It is.
Okay, so DeSantis communication director, Taryn, the whole time I was talking, you're like, is he going to start reading or not? DeSantis communication director, Taryn Fenke, dismissed the accusations and questioned the motives of the complaint, adding, "This is the list of frivolous and politically motivated attacks. It's inappropriate to use state ethics complaints for partisan purposes," he said in a statement. Complaints often don't see the light of day unless they are released by the people filing them. The commission does not make complaints or material public until they are dismissed or probable cause determined in order to protect the privacy of their subjects. Trump offered that the FBI has a history of making PACs to push narratives that are not genuine, and that
this PAC's too big. I mean, maybe
they could influence, but doesn't know. We don't. I'm not saying that is the case here. That's just, I was reading the comments in the chat. Yeah. So, if the commission finds the complaint is valid, it could issue a fine or a reprimand, but cannot remove an elected official from office.
Remember, I mean, it's possible. It's possible that maybe there's like some kind of like FBI psyop or whatever, but like what's not an FBI psyop is like Trump himself personally has made some like very stupid, frivolous attacks against DeSantis in the last couple of weeks, like really aggressive and also stupid arguments against him. So I mean, it might be that the FBI is also going against him, but it does seem that, even if this wasn't directed by Trump, it's certainly within the spirit of what Trump is going after, and probably in response, because what the PACs do is they watch the candidate, because they're not allowed to have direct interaction with the candidate, but they can still see what the candidate's doing. They can see what they're talking about, see what their policies are going to be, and the PAC can kind of try to figure out, okay, let's do this because it seems like it's going to help what Trump's goals are. And with Trump constantly having these frivolous attacks against DeSantis, the PAC probably looked at that and said, oh, well, Trump's attacking DeSantis, so we should help him out on that because that seems to be what he's trying to do. So I don't necessarily think you need to have a wider conspiracy with this when Trump is so obviously upset that DeSantis is probably better than him.
So I think Trump is kind of the he will do anything to win type guy, even though he does love America and has done a lot of great things, and I could take that from him. I think that he is willing to tear down someone who is done the most for the conservative movement. Like there's not even like there's no competitor for how good of a governor DeSantis has been compared to all other governors currently, right? Mm-hmm. So Trump's willing to tear that guy down because he wants to win, and he's tearing him down for things that are not legitimate. He's not like DeSantis is corrupt and bad for the movement, and then he's got legitimate criticism. No, he's just attacking them because he wants to win. And I don't think that is the kind of person I want to vote for. And I don't think that is presidential, that he's willing to hurt the movement just to win. I think that doing what's best for the country is more important. And that's why I don't like that he's been going after DeSantis. DeSantis hasn't done anything wrong to earn his ire. He's not even running.
Well, wait. We haven't gotten to the last story here. Let's calm down. DeSantis hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah, I guess we'll get to that. So let me get back to the notes because we got a lot to cover. So if the commission finds complaints is valid, we could issue a fine, like I said, but they can't remove an elected official from office. It could recommend that the governor suspend an elected official for violating ethic laws, but that would require DeSantis to take action against himself if a violation were found, which is not going to happen. The process is often used by campaigns to raise questions about opponents by making complaints public, although many are resolved or dismissed without the commission finding violations. It is illegal in Florida to file a complaint with malicious intent and false claims. The commission can fine violators who can also be ordered to pay the defendant's legal fees. I think that based on the accusations, you can't prove any of those things were, you can't prove any wrongdoing. But also, I think it's the proving malicious intent is also hard.
Yeah. So pretty ridiculous. I guess we'll see where that goes. Maybe it won't matter if Trump gets arrested by the New York DA first. Here are some things that DeSantis is doing, other than eating various puddings. This week there was some news about him issuing a crackdown on a hotel that hosted a drag queen event for Christmas.
Oh yeah, this story.
Kids present. Which seems like a odd type of, Christmas present to have. Drag queens with, All right, we're gonna make sure that Dyer gets to read all of these really fun parts describing what happened because he'll really enjoy that.
Fucking
hell, man. I will read the less embarrassing parts. All right, so from the Daily Wire, we're gonna skip through some of the. I don't know. They have some fluff at the beginning here. So this again is about a child drag show or a drag show where there was like a drag queen story hour kind of a thing. It was a children's event for Christmas that was hosted at a Hyatt hotel. And the event was a drag show, which, drag show for children doesn't seem to go together, but they tried to make it work. So they also had alcohol at the event. Where there was children expressly invited to the event. The event was expressly for children, which is a big no-no, regardless of if they're drag queens there or not. The state of Florida was aware that this was about to happen and issued them a warning prior to the event, saying that if they were to go through with an event where children were invited and there was alcohol present, that they would lose their liquor license. And I just had to sneeze. Okay, so the complaint that was filed by the state said that Hyatt promoted a show that targeted Christmas-themed promotional materials that did not provide notice as to the sexually explicit nature of the show's performances or other content. Rather than call attention to the show's sexually explicit content or acknowledge that it might not be appropriate for children, Residence promotional materials unequivocally stated that all ages were welcome, the Florida state complaint said. The complaint also noted that the state of Florida sent a letter to the Hyatt prior to the event and warned them that the sexually explicit drag show performances constituted a public nuisance, lewd activity, and disorderly conduct when minors were in attendance. And that if the hotel failed to ensure that minors were prohibited from attending such performances, its licenses would be subject to penalties up to and including revocation.
I do want to make one quick remark. We said it during the previous story, but I just want to foot stomp it real quick. Ethics complaints are notoriously used by all sides as a way of laundering baseless claims and give them unearned credence to the news. So you can make claims about a candidate, and some candidates in the past have received, many of them, all of them dismissed because there was no basis to them, but they all made news stories, right? Anyways, back to this. The complaint said that the show featured numerous segments where performers engaged in acts of sexual conduct, simulated sexual activity, lewd, vulgar, and indecent displays, including, but not limited to, performers forcibly penetrating or rubbing their exposed prosthetic female breast against the faces or oral cavities of audience members. Intentionally exposing performers' prosthetic female breast and genitalia to the audience. Intentionally exposing performers' buttocks to the audience. Simulating masturbation through performers' digitally penetrating prosthetic female genitalia. And graphic depictions of childbirth and or abortion.
The complaint, which we literally can't show you and probably don't want to look at, included pictures that were a little shocking. Even the AI could not generate pictures of that kind of terror. Also, again, Dyer, as you mentioned, that this was they were rubbing prosthetic breasts against members of the audience, and what ages were the audience members?
The one in the nice packaging is not ours.
They were all ages.
All ages.
Yes,
including kids.
Including kids. Okay. So the complaint said that videos played in the background behind the performers included images of exposed female breasts, probably real ones, with less than a fully opaque covering, portrayals of simulated masturbation, and other sexually explicit content. So basically just like playing softcore porn in the background. The show also contained sexually explicit themes and prurient consent presented through perverted versions of popular children's Christmas songs. Terrible. The complaint added that these included adaptations of All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth that contained portrayals to oral fellatio, as well as the line, I sit on his lap so he can put his milk and cookies between my gap.
Classy. So, I don't remember that at any of my kids' Christmas parties. So the show also
the
featured...
two front teeth, creating that into a pun about fellatio is particularly disconcerting given the age where your two front teeth are typically missing.
Yeah.
That's particularly disconcerting.
Yeah, it seems like it was featured towards, implying something with child abuse. So the show also featured a performance of Screwdolf, the red-nippled reindeer, which included the following lyrics. This is going to get cut up, isn't it? You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Vomit and Stupid and Dildo and Dickens. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all, Screwdolf, the red-nippled reindeer? Had a very shiny bust. I'm gonna stop there.
No one asked you to sing it. That was entirely a choice Dyer made on his own, live for you guys. Was to sing that.
If I was singing it, I could have committed more to it. Then one soggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Screwed off with your nipples, right? Won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" Is this the rest of the song? Seriously? Did you just put the entire lyrics of the song in here?
It's a Daily Wire article, Dyer. We're doing what we normally do. We're reading articles and reacting to it.
So at all times, material. Why would they put the whole lyrics? I think we get the idea from the name of the song. So at all times, material to this complaint, at all times, material to this complaint, respondents maintained dominion and control over its licensed premises and performances conducted at the licensed premises and the persons admitted onto its licensed premises. That sentence there is to say, at no point did someone commandeer their facility and start having a party outside their control. Everything that happened within the party was within their control. The property was under their control, and this is all within their consent, is what they are trying to say. The state officials allege, accordingly, respondents authorized, permitted, and maintained the show to occur on its licensed premises, and as a direct result of its admission policies, knowingly exposed minor children to conduct alleged herein.
So, DeSantis, the end result of this was DeSantis revoked the liquor license of the Hyatt. Now, I'm sure that's annoying for the Hyatt, and a lot of people have pointed out, arrest these people, to which Dyer and I absolutely agree.
My first response.
However, there has been some kind of overblown reaction that this is kind of just, this reaction's disqualifying for DeSantis here. This proves that he's not a real Republican, and he's not really conservative, and he doesn't really care about kids. And I think that there's probably more that he could do. However, I think that the attack against him that, well, this is disqualifying, and this proves that he's not really for the cause. I think that's just it doesn't pass the sniff test.
I think he took the most legally defensible direction.
Yes. And surely this will get tested in the course, and I think he'll get bolder as he moves forward. I would love for him to be super bold now. But he has done some really specific legal maneuvers against the left, against this kind of child sexual exploitation that's been going on. And to say that he's not a true believer and a true player for this is just disingenuous. There is no other governor or Republican right now who's doing anything anywhere close to the level of direct legislative and legal action against the left that DeSantis is doing. Can he do more? Of course, he can always do more, but there's no limit to doing more.
What he's doing now is still leaps and bounds ahead of anyone else. And I respect that he's being strategic. He's not trying to waste all his powder on one battle. He's trying to win this, get precedence, and survive so he can win other battles, right? He was able to respond to this using this method without having to arrest them all, though I would like for him to have done that. But because he's taken the most legally defensible action against them, he's not going to be locked down and prevented from taking the next action against the next event, right?
And also, it may be that there is something else in the works there. Maybe there's a second case or second or third case going on. But I would think that the kind of legal maneuver to prepare for a case against revoking someone's liquor license is probably going to be a much shorter process than trying to arrest a bunch of people for pedophilia. You probably have to have a little bit of a higher burden. And maybe they're working on that burden, or maybe they felt that they didn't have, they didn't want to waste legal resources on something if they didn't think that they had, we all know in our heart what's going on here, but if you don't have the evidence, you don't have the evidence. And as you said earlier, their legal team is working very hard on a lot of other specific tasks. And maybe they just thought, you know what, we unfortunately we would love if we did, but we just don't have the direct evidence that we need to make this an open shut case. And unfortunately, we do have limited legal resources, and they're currently being consumed by other things that will hopefully have more of an impact. I think this was great what he did. I wish that there was more. But again, you look at all of have you ever seen how many child drag shows have we had over the last 7 years, and how many of them have had any kind of legal action against them?
No legal action taken against any of them, and in states like Texas, they've had these drag shows and no response.
Yeah. So, I think that this is disqualifying for Abbott, who also is a 2024 hopeful for some reason. And
good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't an issue for DeSantis. This is an issue for all the other governors who are not doing this.
Other governors that might criticize DeSantis, all right, show us where you did better.
Yes. All right. Now, that's not to say that DeSantis is the perfect 2024 candidate.
He's one flaw.
Yes, this brings us to our final story, which is I'm noticing that there's a specifically gas stove in the background of the one on the left, which I like the AI. The AI is fighting for gas stoves as well. So DeSantis has a problem. He has a pudding problem.
No.
Yes.
Where are you putting it?
Well, sometimes it's easiest to figure out what a story is by reading a bunch of headlines. So we have from The Intelligencer, Ron DeSantis eating pudding with his fingers will end his 2024 bid. From Vanity Fair, this image of Ron DeSantis eating chocolate pudding will haunt your dreams.
Oh my God.
The Daily Beast, Seth Meyers is horrified by DeSantis's barbaric eating habits. The Washingtonian. Well, you guys know what I'm trying to say. The Washingtonian. There we go. DeSantis is allegedly the latest politician with unhinged eating habits. So what did DeSantis do? What will haunt your dreams forever? From the Daily Beast, their article says that a very, very long article. I mean, it was probably 10,000 words. And really the only interesting part of the article is the substance of what actually happened, which was very, very short as compared to the length of the article. So, quote, enshrined in DeSantis lore is an episode from 4 years ago, daring a private plane trip from Tallahassee to Washington, D.C., which I believe was when he was a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, I think.
Yeah.
In March of 2019, DeSantis enjoyed a chocolate pudding dessert by eating it with 3 fingers, according to not one, but 2 sources who were familiar with the incident.
And I hear from a reliable source that for some people, 3 fingers is too many.
It is. Not for all people, but for some people. I like how it's 2 sources familiar with the incident, so it wasn't even 2 people who were present. It was 2 people who were not present.
Yeah, that were told about it later on.
Yeah. Okay, so
Can I respond to this, please?
Yeah, well, we'll do like a little bit of a setup because there's some context missing here.
Okay.
Not that it really matters.
It's
We're not saying
ridiculous.
that DeSantis didn't eat pudding with his 3 fingers, but this was during. We believe that this was when he was flying to. Back and forth to Congress, and that he was also probably during his campaign or pre-campaign ramp up for becoming governor. And in fact, this was March 2019, so it probably right in the heat of getting started for his bid for governor in 2020. So he would have been probably stressed out a little bit, little short on time, a lot of things going on, and probably needed a little bit of a snack during his quick flight from Tallahassee to DC there. So, Dyer, what's your read on the situation here?
Well, first off, before I get into more in depth, this is not even registering on the grossest things the average guy does.
Yeah, I know, right? This is like the best they got, right?
Okay, just to throw out there, just talking about the average guys, this is not even registering as the grossest thing that guys do. And then military guys who have had to just make things happen with what they have. He is a military guy who has had to deal with not having the niceties of society. We've done far worse, and this doesn't even register. Like, this is commonplace.
Yeah. So
As
again,
far as-
we've talked a little bit about this before, and we'll certainly talk about it a lot more once we start getting into primary season, and if DeSantis does in fact actually run for it. But I was curious a while back as to, DeSantis is supposedly a military guy, and I wanted to know what was his actual military career, because we've had a few people. Even in recent memory, who have had quote unquote military careers that were maybe not quite, they're a little overblown as compared to what they actually did. And DeSantis was a JAG, who means he was a military lawyer. And there's kind of a perception of the JAGs that they're kind of, they get their rank by sending, the hardworking guys to Leavenworth. And basically, if you have the audacity to survive one of your ops, well, someone like DeSantis is going to come put you in jail for having killed somebody who was trying to kill you. And so I looked in to see, was DeSantis one of those guys? Was he sending good men and women to Leavenworth for war crimes? And what we found out is that no, he wasn't. DeSantis was actually attached to several combat units, and like the real door kickers. And what he would do is, as they were planning their ops, he would go out in the field with them, help them plan their ops to make sure none of them would end up in Leavenworth, to make sure that the ops were being planned out in a way that was legal, both with American law and international war crime law, to make sure that when these guys came home, they didn't have to worry about any legal repercussions because everything was on the up and up. And he did spend time in theater, attached to units, out in the field. It looks like he really did, he earned that uniform. It looks like he was out there in some hard times, in rough conditions. And so, like you said, Dyer, when you're out in rough conditions like that, I can guess, but I'm sure you know it firsthand. Sometimes you don't have a spoon, and sometimes you need calories, right? And so sometimes you do stuff that is probably not acceptable table manners here in the West, but you do it because that's how you got to do it. You got to get the job done, and that's how you get the job done, right?
Right. And what this screams to me is elitists saying, oh, look at this guy. He's acting like one of the plebs, one of the poors. How could he possibly hold office? This will haunt him because he was acting like one of the common people. That's how I'm reading. And most people who are reading this are like, you sound really out of touch by being upset about this. And also, if this is the only thing, the best thing you have to complain about, if you have time to write an article about this, then you have nothing about him of substance to actually complain about.
Yeah. Again, as we kind of set the stage for when this happened was, on a plane ride between probably speaking events, probably a little stressed out, probably, run a little ragged, probably a little tired. Sometimes, Diary, I'm sure you can speak to this, is sometimes when you're back in civilization, back in your own country,
revert back to behaviors that
sometimes a stressful situation you might forget where you're at. You might forget some manners. You might revert back a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, you live so many years of your life, with those behaviors being normal and okay and logical. And when you go back to society, and you're going to revert back to that sometimes.
And I think eating pudding with 3 fingers is probably the least egregious thing that you could possibly...
I don't even like we're having this conversation. It's so stupid.
Yes. It's probably like the least crazy thing that could possibly you would fall back on. Why is this even a story? Why was there dozens and dozens of headlines about this? Because, like you said, Dyer, the elites think like, oh, well, you're acting like the poorest, and that's weird. Acting like a regular person or acting like somebody who's been in the military, that's weird to these people. It's not weird that we have a man who's pretending to be a woman as the Secretary of Health. It's not weird that we had another man pretending to be a woman running the nuclear waste agency.
Long list, bro.
Between stealing luggage racks. It's not weird that we have the last 3 women of the year were actually men. It's not none of that's weird. It's not weird that Joe Biden's son has millions of dollar deals with Chinese companies, which is our next story here. That's not weird. What's weird is that DeSantis was in the military. That's why he's a weirdo, and that's disqualifying.
They don't like that he is relatable to the people, and that he's doing good things for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Well, I guess that's the nail in the coffin for DeSantis. So,
yeah, I guess we can't vote for him anymore.
Yep. No longer a he, him, but a was, were, and he won't be getting my vote.
Such a promising career. He's had to use those fingers for something they weren't meant to be used for.
Yep. Like you said, sometimes 3 fingers too many.
I mean, had it been a sexual assault claim, I mean, we probably could have dealt with that because that's commonplace, right, for politicians. But no, if he used those three fingers for something like that, maybe he's got a salvageable career. But pudding one time, that's too far.
I do like that almost every time that I asked the AI to generate something with pudding in it, it always included strawberries. The AI must really like strawberries.
I am like the one on the right messes with my head because
it's a plane made out of pudding, and then there's one where it's just like it's a plate of pudding with a plane in it, and then the other one's just pudding on the table with a plane in it.
Top is they poured pudding on the table, but they also poured it in a perfect square and put the plate on top, and then there's a little cup of additional cream to add to your chocolate pudding that's poured on the table.
That has a plane in it.
Doesn't make any sense.
The one on the left's actually a really good picture of DeSantis. He looks really nice in it. All right. Our last story here is so actually we'll do on the AI picture here first. We got Joe Biden in his crime family. It's expanding. It's getting worse. The walls are not necessarily closing in. They're actually expanding because there's more and more evidence of more and more people, not just Hunter. You've all been distracted by Hunter the last couple of years. Well, he's not the only one. So we have from the Post-Millennial here. Dr. Jill might be the 4th Biden family member to receive money. Yes, linked to Chinese businesses. So this is kind of an aggregate story of a lot of different developments that happened this week. So there's obviously there's been a lot of new Republican-led hearings into the Joe Biden crime family. And there was a lot of individual updates this week. And so this one's going to be kind of assuming this article assumes that you know some of that already, but because we only have the show once a week, we're skipping over a few of these. But this article references some of them. But yeah, there's a lot of developments this week about that. So Post-Millennial says, bank records that we've obtained from Rob Walker, a Biden family associate, say that he used his company to transfer money from a Chinese energy company to Hunter Biden, James Biden, Haley Biden, and also a unknown Biden that may or may not be Dr. Jill Biden. My goodness.
You know, any money she receives, he also receives. She is his wife.
That's not how money works, Dyer.
Yes, they share a household
and
finances, right? So
okay.
It almost seems logical that any money she receives is also him receiving the money.
One would think that. Also, you would think that too with Hunter when they have the same bank account.
Yeah, they share the same expenses as well.
All right. So the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, my goodness, released financial records on Thursday that showed former business associates of Hunter Biden, Rob Walker, quote, used his company to transfer money from a Chinese energy company to Hunter Biden, James Biden, Haley Biden, and an unknown Biden that some allege could be First Lady Jill Biden. Or Dr. First Lady Jill Biden to you. According to the Daily Mail, speculation is building that the First Lady could have, Dr. First Lady, could have indirectly or directly received money from Hunter Biden's controversial Chinese business dealings. Let's see here. The outlet has previously revealed apparent discrepancy of up to millions of dollars between Joe and Jill's IRS filings and his government transparency reports that raise questions over their income sources. Dyer, have you ever just lost where you received millions of dollars on your income and you're just like, man, I can't remember where I got that from, and you like mismatched it on your
Well, because I had to pay taxes. No.
Oh. You'll always keep track of where your
Does he not pay taxes?
I think Hunter is being got for not paying taxes, and I think Joe also had. I think there were some allegations that he also did not pay his taxes.
I think the ears of like the IRS. Imagine they're like meerkats; they're just popping out of their holes when they hear someone say they lost income, like the source of income, where it went to, because that's a pretty major indicator that they might not have paid their taxes.
You know, Triumvirate, you're right. Using your tongue on a pudding cup is also an equally valid way of getting it out. Some guys prefer using their tongue. Some guys prefer using 3 fingers. It's up to you how you want to get your pudding out.
My wife likes both ways.
Yeah. Pudding?
What?
Huh?
We're talking about pudding?
Back to the Post-Millennial. On Thursday, the committee announced that they discovered new evidence that Walker's company, Robinson Walker LLC, received a, quote, $3 million wire from the State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese company. Biden family members and their companies began receiving incremental payments over a period of approximately 3 months after Walker's company was wired the money. The total money transferred adds up to $1,065,692, according to the committee. Those family members were James Biden, Hunter Biden, Haley Biden, Beau Biden, who's Beau Biden's widow and ex-girlfriend of Hunter Biden. Yikes. And also a fourth unknown Biden. When you're dating somebody who has the same last name as you, usually that's a problem. Okay, so the committee said that the Biden family, quote, received approximately 1/3 of the money obtained from the China wire. So again, there's this company owned by an associate of Hunter's that receives money from a Chinese company, and then for really no reason at all, the company then sends some other money to members of the Biden family. Now, Dyer, as we're both well aware, can you just give people large amounts of money?
No, actually get taxed on it. It's gift tax.
And even if you do tax it, you also can't just give people money for no reason at all, right? That there usually has to be some business purpose.
Well, it would be highly illogical to give that quantity of money with no purpose. It would indicate that they received something, yes.
Well, you actually literally can't. So if you, let's say, for instance, they wanted to put, Haley Biden on the payroll and say, oh, she was a consultant. That might be fine. But if you're paying her exorbitant amounts of money and there's no evidence that she's actually contributing work for them, you actually, even if you tax it, it's still illegal because it seems like you're trying to launder that money by getting it taxed. Like the whole point of money laundering is, it's nice that you decided to pay your taxes, but clearly the money was gained through some purpose that was otherwise untaxable, probably because it was illegal.
A second reason why is because that money most likely came from a business expense for something, and then just giving business money away without a purpose is also, a crime because you're taking money from that business, right?
Yeah. So, so this is very, very weird and irregular. And certainly raises some red flags, which actually the red flags that this rose were suspicious activity reports that the various...
Chinese flags.
What's that?
Chinese flags.
Yes.
That's what
these were suspicious activity reports that banks are required to file with the Treasury if they find that your transactions are anomalously large and don't have a purpose for them. There's probably some Fourth Amendment violations there, but that is the system of rules that people like Joe Biden built for us. So he certainly gets to abide by them, since people like him made them. And the place where the Republican-led committee hearings have been investigating first was those suspicious activity reports from the Treasury, which is where they found that these payments were made to members of the Biden family. So these are not like random allegations. These are real wire transfer receipts that were filed with the Treasury that were then investigated and acquired by the Republican-led House committees. So these aren't allegations; these are real things that happened. Let's see here. So that company then wired cash to Hunter Biden's business partner, James Gilliar. Gilliar sent an email back on May 13th, 2017 to Walker, along with Tony Bobulinski, I think we've heard that name before, and Hunter and James Biden that referenced, quote, the big guy. The email was in regards to the money exchanged in Biden's business dealings with Bobulinski and has said, quote, the big guy refers to Joe Biden. Revelation from Hunter Biden's laptop from hell have confirmed that Joe Biden's son was engaged in suspicious foreign business partnerships for years, including in the Ukraine and in China. And that is the end of that article. So, I think as opposed to the walls closing in, the walls are expanding as more and more members of the Biden family get roped in. It's not just that, and I think this might make sense, right? So there was a long time we had to deal with this kind of cognitive dissonance that Joe Biden is, at the same time that he's an absolute bumbling idiot buffoon, he's also the kingpin of this massive crime family. And maybe if more members of the family are involved in this, maybe we don't need Joe Biden to be this genius, evil supervillain. Maybe he can continue being just a bumbling old fool whose family just kind of collectively has a crime family going on and organized crime in that way. So that might help both of these narratives kind of even themselves out. What would happen? What do you think would happen if it was found out that like Jill Biden was like absolutely, definitely money laundering and getting illegal payments from China? Like, what would that do to the country? Like, how would we deal with that?
Honestly, I think what's going to would happen if that was proven is that he'll just not win the next election. He'll probably get impeached, but he probably will stay the rest of his term. He won't stay in office afterwards, and probably a Republican will win. And then give it 20 years, people will forget why you should never vote for Democrats, and they'll make office again.
Possibly.
Call me a pessimist.
Yeah. I don't know, are we, I guess at this point, it'll be interesting to continue covering now that we've got Republican control of the House, and hopefully we'll get more control at the next election cycle. But man, I'm kind of tapped out and bored by these Biden crime stories. I mean, we know we basically know what they did. All we're doing is filling in more and more gaps of like, well, like how specifically did they do it? Like we know that they like 100% did these things, but like how did they specifically do it? And we're filling in more and more gaps, but it's just kind of boring. And I guess I would be. It'll be nice to see as the Republicans actually get through these hearings, and maybe there'll be some charges brought, and maybe they'll do some impeachment. And I'm sure that all that's going to be very interesting, and it needs to happen. But just until there's actually like some kind of substantive movement on that front, I'm kind of bored by these stories.
There's other problems too, like this. Like Fauci, we know in great detail that he made bioweapons using U.S. money, taxpayer money given to the Chinese, right? But we're just learning more and more painful detail and how, like, exactly how and how bad he did that.
Yeah, it's like okay, like what we thought to start with was pretty bad, and then like we're finding out that it's actually worse than we thought. But as bad as it was to start
the degrees of treason, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, so like, should we throw him in jail for like 200 years or 500 years? Like that's kind of the difference here. It's like the very first thing was so bad, these guys will be locked up for multiple life sentences. But like, we're just finding out like, oh, it's like a serial killer. It's like, oh man, he killed 5 people. And then you like find out like, oh my God, he killed like 10 people. It's like, well, I mean, that's bad, but it's like, it was bad to start with. Like it doesn't make it like, it like doesn't change. It doesn't really change anything.
The degree to which they're evil after killing 5 to 10 is not. It's not much of a difference. He's still the same evil.
This AI image of Biden on the left also has a triple pocket square.
Yeah.
Huh.
pretty cool, right?
I like how this picture is like Biden's got his like American flag lapel pin, and he's also standing in front of an American flag, but like he has some kind of like seat marker where it's the Chinese flag, and like don't they do that at the UN where like their like seat has like a little small flag for the country?
Yes.
And so like he's actually just sitting at the Chinese delegation spot.
But they put a flag behind him, American flag behind him.
Yeah, I mean that's about accurate, right?
Also, like, it looks like a Chinese pilot helmet.
So the one in the middle, I got that by the prompt I typed in was Biden working on a Chinese oil rig, because if Biden's getting so much money from China for from their energy companies, it must be because he's working for them, right? And I mean, what skills does Biden have in Chinese energy other than working on an oil rig? And so that's where
Yeah,
he's
he
at.
seems like an oil rig worker.
Yes,
he wouldn't just dissolve.
I believe they call them worms.
Yeah, it's not like he would completely dissolve after 10 seconds of doing that job, right? Every bone in his body would be broken in the first minute.
I want to see, how like Biden's had so much plastic surgery over the years. He's got like several like really distinct faces depending on what year it is.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if I can get the AI to like figure out like, show me Joe Biden in 2010 versus 2020 and see if it can figure out like between his facial reconstructions.
One of the less good AIs I tried using before getting to Dream AI actually took the wrinkly, more older version of his face on the top and the younger version of his face on the bottom, and just combined them together. It was really horrifying looking.
All right, chat, give us like a prompt to put. We'll do one live here, but you give us a prompt and we'll do something crazy. 200 characters or less. But in the meantime, we'll go back to this awesome picture.
That is a great picture.
That is actually a really great picture. Like, obviously, like we would probably have to pay like probably at least $200 to some
I have
artists to
paid
get that
thousands of dollars over the years for art.
Here's another one that we liked was let me see if I can. Where'd that? Oh, there, it's up here. There we go. Come on. There we go. We have these wolves with guns.
Like, the guns are just ridiculous, but the wolves are great.
Yeah, but the wolves also have wolf fur coats on.
Yes, the more you look at the picture, the crazier it is. They are wearing wolf fur coats.
Wait, is it maybe just that they've got like vests on and like they just have their regular shirt?
No. The fur coats are a different color of fur, and they're shorter hair than the hair they actually have.
Yeah. And then I think this one was from Wolf Soldiers, which is funny. And we see that he's got a double stack magazine in one of the rifles, and then this gun, this gun's got some issues with it. It's a little unique. But
and several breaches.
He's doing his best, okay?
It's like you load a bullet in each breech and then fire them simultaneously at the same barrel.
Hey, he's a wolf soldier, all right? Let him go. Don't see you doing any better. Yeah, I like this picture. I'd actually be willing to like probably get that printed out. That's a cool picture.
Yeah, I'll put that on the wall.
All right, I'll save that. Maybe we'll do like canvas printouts.
I got a Kodak store near me. That's got really good pricing.
Yeah, you can get them at like Walgreens and stuff. Like does them too. But yeah, it's a good picture. I like it. It captures. It's very hard to get it to do a fox and a wolf because a lot of times it would just do two foxes or two wolves, or horrifyingly, something that was obviously the structure of a fox, like the thinner face, but had wolf colors on it.
Yes.
Terrifying.
I also had several fever dream pictures of wolves dropping bombs on foxes.
Yeah, that one was why would you do that? Why did you do that? Actually, I think I have that.
It was pretty silly.
Why would you do that?
Yes, why?
All right, thanks.
Okay. Give me a prompt, Dyer.
Oh my God. Kamala Harris giving an inspirational speech.
Oh wait, Triumvirate gave us one. So image of a biblically accurate angels who are playing poker and smoking cigars.
Nice. That should be interesting.
All right, let's see what we got. We got realistic set. And let's see here. Biblically accurate. So you're talking about like the wheels within wheels ones, aren't you?
Doesn't look like an angel.
Well, it's doing its best.
What the fuck?
I mean, it's like it's got aspects of like all kinds of different genders and stuff. So maybe I don't know. Triumvirate, you're probably more biblically literate than I am. Let me know if that is your biblically.
Looks like a man who's praying while playing pool with a cigar.
Let's just try angels. We'll just be a little more.
Yeah.
I might need to go into not photorealistic. Trevor says fail. Well, we got pool and cigars for that one, so we're closer.
Look at the pool balls. What the fuck is that?
They're doing their best, Dyer. Let's try like an unreal. Let's do the unrealistic one. Let's see here. Maybe spectral.
Nah.
Let's see here. Expressionism?
Nah. Unreal.
Unreal? All right, we're going to unrealistic version 2. Let's see what happens. Oh, you did say poker. I don't know why I said pool. Well, let's try that again. Playing poker.
Maybe is better.
I guess this was a test of like my ability to follow a prompt.
You failed.
I did. Does he have a cigar in his nose? Or is a cigarette? These are cigarettes, so like it actually like did not capture the cigar prompt at all. We'll try one more time.
Also, I don't see the angel in that at all.
We'll try one more time with the realistic. See what happens. I'm surprised that it didn't just show us a bunch of foxes, them being angels.
False.
I think this is a lot closer. I know that you want to see
Look at the size of those cards.
They're all aces. There is too many aces in this deck. There's at least 3 and 2 halves. Or there's 4 and 2 halves.
And he's looking at him like, what did you do? Like, you're clearly cheating, right? The cards are huge.
Let's try foxes playing poker. Let's see what happens. And that'll be our last one. Not that Dyer and I couldn't spend like 80 hours doing this.
Not that we didn't already spend a bunch of time.
Look at him. Aww. He's all in. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate your viewership. Have a good week. Good luck with everything. And we will see you next weekend.
Yes.
Which is not Mother's Day.
You don't know that yet. Things might change.
You can be pretty confident. It's
my
not
life is chaos. Mother Day sneaks up on you,
Yeah. Alrighty.
Dire Wolf out.